Hello and welcome to the Milltown Way, the independent Shamrock Rovers podcast covering all things hoops. I'm Ryan Brennan, your host, and on today's episode, we have a lot to get through. First, we'll start off with the international break where Adam Brennan, Ed McGinty, and Matt Healy were in the squad for Ireland's friendly against Canada. We'll also break down the latest transfer news involving Michael Noonan and a potential move to Ajax, as well as now Alex Noonan and a move to Ipswich Town. We'll look at the FAI Cup draw, where Rovers have been paired with Cork City in the second round, a repeat of last year's final. And we'll finish off the podcast previewing Shelbourne away at Rovers heading to Talca Park in what is always a big fixture in the league season. Firstly, we will start with the international game, and that was, of course, Ireland drawn 1-1 with Canada in Montreal. It was a late kickoff for those watching from home, 12:30 a.m. or 12:45 actually by the time it kicked off a.m. Irish time. And yeah, look, for the fans who did stay up and hope to watch, maybe a Rovers trio on the night and participate in the friendly, which again, look, a meaningless friendly for on the Irish front. It's not Ireland who are going to the World Cup. They're warming Canada up essentially, who are heading to the World Cup. But yeah, look, it was frustrating on that front. Look, I think everyone can see why Heimer Halgrimsson, I don't think he likes to make too many changes, no matter what the occasion is, because he had only made four changes before the 88th minute, and he only made four in that friendly against Qatar, if you remember that as well. So, yeah, look, I don't think many people were impressed, and the last player to come on the pitch was a Rovers player, Adam Brennan, and he comes on the 92nd minute and plays 3 minutes. He did get, I think, a couple of touches of the ball, but yeah, played 3 minutes in a meaningless friendly. I don't see the logic, and to travel on the other side of the world and be involved in that friendly against Qatar as well. I just think I don't understand the logic of it. I think, look, on the night he gives Keane Levy minutes as well. Obviously Mason Media and Killian Phillips also come on. Like in the end, he does make seven changes in a friendly. That means nothing to Ireland. I don't know if that's and it's more than the Qatar friendly, yeah, albeit, but I don't know. I don't see the logic really. Ireland aren't preparing for anything. They're not preparing for a summer in the heat. If anything, that was a holiday for the players. One of the players in the pre-match interview, I think Mark Travers said it about that most of the players went to Canada last Sunday to adjust to temperature and time difference. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's quite disappointing. Looking all on that front, it's frustrating. It's frustrating being a Rovers fan, watching and hoping you'll see all of them get minutes. I don't think really there's a good enough excuse for. I don't know. There's not a good enough excuse really for any omission there. Healy, McGinty, and Brennan. I don't see why there's not a case for all of them to be on the pitch at some point in the game. Look, it is the way it is. It didn't happen. Particularly, I don't know. Matt Healy joins for just a Canada friendly. I can understand maybe it's a bit more reluctance, And again, I'm just clutching here at straws to try maybe figure out why Heimer Halgrimsson doesn't give him minutes. But if the other side of that is Ed McGinty, he was there for the Qatar friendly and Canada, and he didn't get 1 minute. The first friendly, look, I know I already spoke on it, but the first friendly he plays Keller for the full 90 minutes. He's on the back of a Premier League season. He just probably wants to get his rest now. So I don't know why he's playing Keller for a full 90 minutes in that friendly. And then secondly, against Canada, Mark Travers. The only thing I would give Mark Travers is he doesn't get as much minutes. He doesn't get that many minutes for Ireland. And he's always in the camp, and he's like the number two now at the moment. Been strong number two for a while, I think, for Ireland. Because the goalkeeping position is a strong one. I will say that, but again, it's a meaningless friendly against Qatar. Surely maybe give them a half each. I don't know. I just think it's quite unfair on Ed McGinty to go there for two games and not get 1 minute, not get a sniff. And it's the same, I think, as well for Conor Brand as well of Cork City. You know, again, I think it's the same thing that one of them at least should be getting it. Why would you like bring the two lads to the other side of the world and not give any of them a minute? I just don't understand it. And particularly, I think with Ed McGinty, I think particularly he's proven himself at senior level with Rovers. He's doing it with Sligo, or he done it with Sligo, and that's what warranted the move to Rovers. And look, he's playing for Rovers week in week out. It doesn't in Ireland. It's not getting a higher level than that, and he's doing a really good job at it too. Um, Bradley spoke before, and that's the reason why Alex Noonan doesn't get minutes in between the sticks, even though he has full confidence in Alex Noonan. It's because McGinty has performed so well. So you see him perform so well on a weekly basis for Rovers, and to not get 1 minute in 180 available across two meaningless friendlies, one in Dublin and one the other side of the world. That's just, to me, I'd be quite furious with that if you're Stephen Bradley, and even as a Rover supporter, I don't think that's good enough. And I don't think it suffices. As I said, look, I know he might look to the bench and he sees McGinty and Brand there, thinking that one of them will be disappointed with getting no minutes. But do you think then you go with the latter and go, well, I'll just give neither of them minutes? I don't know. And at the other side of the coin, if you're going to go levels, or playing level, one's in the Premier Division of the League of Ireland, the other's in the First Division. So I don't know. I don't think you. I think if you pick one without even the Rovers boys, I think picking McGinty, he's performing at a higher level on a regular basis and performing well at that level too. So yeah, I don't know. Overall, I was disappointed, and to have to stay up that late, hoping that to see some Rovers players on the pitch. Um, Particularly, like, I thought, particularly with that friendly against Canada, I thought. I don't know. I thought I was more hopeful for that than Qatar. I don't know. He seemed for the Qatar game. I don't know. Looking at the Heimer's selection and the likes, that he wanted to go stronger to put out a performance maybe in Dublin. In front of the home fans. I don't know. Again, I still don't accept that either. But I'm just again trying to nearly play devil's advocate here to think what was the reason for you know the lack of what was the reason for the lack of changes in the first game. And then I suppose technically you can't say the lack of changes in the second game, but you can say that, well, what, three or four of them, of the changes against Canada came from the 88th minute onward. Adam Brennan comes on in stoppage time for Ogbene, who's also, I know he's trying to build up to get, he's playing with the 21s there, but I know he's probably trying to get minutes on that at the senior level. Like, again, it's just not acceptable. It's a friendly against Canada, and it means nothing because Canada are the ones going to the World Cup. It's not Ireland. Again, as I said in the last episode, if it's Ireland going to the World Cup, I don't think probably McGinty, Healy, or Brennan go into the squad. But I definitely have a lot more understanding for that. He's not going to maybe trial players out in two friendlies if there's a campaign to come, a big summer ahead. I get that, but I don't get that for an empty summer on the Irish calendar. In terms of the national team, and the fact that they don't play now again until September in the Nations League. I don't see him budging for that one either. He's already spoken aloud about the fact that he wants Ireland to play the game against Israel, the two games against Israel, should I say. He's already spoken on that to say that will give Israel an advantage if Ireland don't fulfil the fixtures, and better goal difference, more points on the board, and it'll improve their chances of qualifying for the Euros in 2028, and it'll decrease Ireland's chances. But look, I don't know. So it shows, he probably look, the Nations League can be important. So I would suspect that he's not going to be trialing players out in the Nations League, and therefore you have now then that's probably until the next couple of friendlies come around, which I don't know when that'll be. Yeah, I don't see how he's going to be trialing. I don't see him trialing players out again for a while. And you see Dawson Devoy, who starts and plays the full first half. He had a chance in the first few minutes. Dawson Devoy, of course, off Bowes, but if he's giving him 45 minutes, he gives Adam Brennan 3 and doesn't give Healy or McGinty any, or Brand for that matter, and gives Levy what he ends up playing about 8 minutes or 7 minutes. That's not good enough either. I don't know. He's not made a. I don't think he's made it good for himself. But look, yeah, it was fiercely frustrating, and yeah, I don't know, to stay up that late. Watching that game, nearly dozing off to sleep at times. To see one Rovers player come on for 3 minutes is not acceptable. Nearly an insult, I think, to be honest. To Adam Brennan, definitely, I think, an insult to Ed McGinty to have been in both camps and not get a minute. And as again, look with Healy, a little bit more, slightly more understanding that because he wasn't there for Qatar, but again, you picked him for Canada, made him fly halfway across the world. to not give him a minute. I don't know, to watch from the sideline. He could have done that at home, saved himself, jet lag and flights over to Canada. I know he's not. It's not as if he's paying for it, but still, I don't know. I don't see the point of it. But look, we'll move it on. Less of my rant over. Moving on to some transfer news that's come out during the week, and it's actually on the two Noonans front. Both Michael and Alex have been appearing in the headlines. I'll start with Michael. Michael Noonan has been strongly linked to with a move to the Amsterdam club Ajax, which is an interesting one. I've seen supporters online suggest that it's a much better move to Ajax than it would be to the likes of your Celtics or maybe a championship side in England or League One, or whatever the case may be. I know he was interested in Celtic. He was choosing Celtic over Hoffenheim the last time the news came out about Noonan. Um, so this time, look, he's strongly linked with Ajax. The reports came out that he flew over to Ajax, spent the weekend there, and seems to like the setup and like what he would be moving into. Um, yeah, look, from the Rovers front, be sad to see him go, but of course, look, we all suspected it. It was just a matter of when, not if. And yeah, look, personally, I think it's a strong move for Noonan, for Michael. I won't say Noonan will end up confusing people. But no, for Michael, I think I don't know. I think Ajax is a strong move for him. They have a history kind of developing younger talent and making them become, you know, just increasing their levels really, or selling them on for bigger fees. And it'd be nice if Rovers can insert some sort of sell-on clause, which I think that would be huge as well. Because if Ajax can develop this player into, you know, even something bigger and better than what he's already developed at Rovers, yeah, that could be a really shrewd move from the club as well. And look, with Michael, with everyone who's watched him, everyone at Rovers and in Tala knows exactly his levels and knows what the type of player he is, how impressive he was even at the under-17s World Cup in the winter there. Performing at a really high standard and bagging goals. And if you remember at that time, in around January time, the interest was coming from a lot of clubs. Or even like United were in the headlines, being linked with Noonan, a few other English teams as well. So to make the move to Ajax, I think it's a smart one. And yeah, look, everyone knows the type of player he is. He knows exactly what the talent is. It's there for all to see. The youngest ever goal scorer in a European competition. It doesn't come by fluke. That goal against Mold in the Conference League, that knockout playoff. That unfortunately ended in disappointment for Rovers. But for him to put his name in the history books like that, huge, and it's huge for the lad. And yeah, look, I think if he goes to Ajax, I think look, everyone will wish him nothing but the best. And I think yeah, I think I don't know. I see Ajax as a good move for him. It's when I heard the Celtic links. I don't know. They've had a history recently of treating Irish players with a bit more disrespect. You've seen Liam Scales still kind of gets a bit of disrespect there, a bit of flack. Johnny Kenny did too, and he's a striker, so it's kind of nearly an identical boat. Only years that's the separating, the only dividend really between the two. Johnny Kenny being up front for Celtic, and if you it seemed I don't know, the overwhelming opinion that I thought was on the striking front is that if they're not bagging goals in regularly, they're going to come under criticism. And if Michael Noonan went to Celtic and wasn't doing it, I think he'd be in for quite a bit of criticism. So I can see Ajax being a much better move. It's a strong league as well, and if he can develop through there, and I don't suspect that he'll be starting for Ajax once the season starts again. But I don't know. I think it's definitely a club that I can see him kicking on and excelling. He does that. Everyone from Ireland will be so proud of him. Stephen Bradley as well, the Rover supporters, all of us really who've seen him, come true. And I know he came from Pats. They've had an influence on his growth, a big impact too, and Rovers to kind of kick it up a bit slightly with more regular European competition, obviously earn them or allowing that opportunity for him to be the youngest goal scorer in a European competition. So yeah, the interesting I think fact of the matter will be how much does he go for? The fee seems to be in the region of 2 million for his move to Hoffenheim. So it'll be interesting to see what he would go for if he is to head to Ajax. As I said, it does look that way. But yeah, the fee is what will make that move slightly more interesting as well. Obviously, you have Victor Osimhen, who's the record-breaking fee of a League of Ireland player when he departs for Arsenal next January. So yeah, with Michael Noonan, I don't think he'll excel that or exceed that fee. But yeah, no, I think it should be in the similar region in anyways, if not a few 100,000 euro off Victor's fee. I think we'll see for Noonan heading to the Netherlands. But yeah, the other Noonan at the club is Alex Noonan. Now, news only kind of circulated this morning as I record this. It's Sunday evening. I haven't been able to gather much information on Alex Noonan's rumoured departure, but seems that he's looking likely he's going to head for Ipswich if he's going to head anywhere. Alex Noonan's, of course, 17, and it seems that Ipswich are in for him. So Alex Noonan, of course, look, he is 17, so he can depart next month as well. Next month being July, so that could see two Noonans out the door, which is interesting. Alex Noonan obviously played this season in the President's Cup against Derry City. It did look like he was going to play against Bohs when Rovers recorded that 2-1 win recently at Dalymount. Enda Stevens, of course, the man. But yes, Stephen Bradley spoke to the media at that time to say Alex Noonan's more than ready to play against Bohs. It was questionable. It was questioned by fans. I had my doubts myself. Look, everyone knows the talent that Alex possesses. So it wasn't that. It was just to throw him in for such a big Dublin derby, for his first appearance of the first league appearance of the season. Yeah, I don't know. I think, look, it's interesting to see how he goes and see what way he goes about it. But yeah, look, if he is a seriously talented goalkeeper. He played also at the under-17 World Cup in the winter. And again, it'll just be interesting to see how does he go. Does he head for Ipswich Town? And look, obviously with Ipswich, they are heading back to the Premier League as well. So he will, if he does go, he will be heading to the Premier League, and so that'll be good experience for him. Look, you'd suspect again. Look, he'll come through the ranks there as well, maybe in the sense that you'll play at underage level. You would think maybe, but again, it shows. It depends on how well he impresses. If he impresses, he might end up even getting first team minutes. And if he signs, obviously in July, he'll be there for their pre-season as well, which will make it interesting too. But yeah, look, on the Michael and Alex Noonan front, we'll see how these unfold, and yeah, we'll see where it takes them, the move. But yeah, look, we'll move it on. The next part of the podcast is the FAI Cup draw that took place for the second round. Took place on Wednesday this week. Rovers were paired with Cork City at home in Tallaght Stadium. A repeat, of course, of the 2025 FAI Cup final that saw Rovers infamously win the double for the first time since 1987. Shamrock Rovers will play them on the weekend, the 17th of July. No fixture details have been confirmed as of yet, but you would suspect that Rovers will play that game on the Sunday. The reason being is that Rovers are in European action on that week, and you would then, yeah, look, you'd likely see it on the 19th of July. Rovers will be playing in the Champions League first round qualifiers. The second leg will be midweek of that week. So yeah, I think you'll see them play that game on the Sunday. The following week they'll be in European action either, regardless of the result of the Champions League as well. They'll either be in the second round of the Champions League qualifiers that midweek after that cup game against Cork City, or they'll be in the Conference League second round either, or one or the other. Because if they do lose the Champions League qualifier the first round, they go from there to the Conference League. They don't drop into Europa League. It's only if they lose the second round onwards. So yeah, that will be another interesting avenue. But yeah, look, Rovers against Cork City in the FAI Cup. I think most people are confident then with that draw. I don't suspect that many people will be too nervous. And it will be, look, Ed McGinty against Conor Bryan as well, the two lads who didn't get any minutes against Qatar or Canada in the friendlies for Ireland the past week or so, week and a half essentially. Um, but yeah, look, I think that's a good draw, good way to get us started, and I think everyone will be looking forward to it. It's funny enough as well. It's the same day as the World Cup final. So I think maybe a lot of fans will be hoping for a slightly earlier kickoff. I can see it being a Sunday 5 p.m. in Tala. That's just my early prediction of the details, not the game. But yeah, the details of that game, I can see it being 5 o'clock on the Sunday. In Tala, Rovers and Cork City. It is a repeat look of last year's final, as I said, which might excite Rovers fans, might slightly nerve the Cork City fans. I think probably they might not come in too confident. Cork City going into that game, I don't think they'll be overly confident of knocking Rovers out. But look, it's a cup game and it's only 90 minutes of football essentially, or of course extra time and penalties if it was level after normal time. But yeah, I think on the Rovers front, the Rovers will be, yeah, look, they'll be confident to going into that game. I think that they can beat Cork City and take it to the next round, into the third round. Um, and yeah, look, the tip between the two, the last year's final obviously was a Rory Gaffney double that separated it, and that won Rovers the double. Haven't seen Rory Gaffney since. Bradley spoke about that recently, that he was to come back soon, and there's still been no update since. It's been a while now since that, but between the two sides, league, it's the leaders of the two leagues in Ireland as well. Rovers leading the Premier Division, Cork are leading the First Division, and you would suspect that Cork City will be back in the top flight for the 2027 campaign. But yeah, look, Cork City will be. I think it'll be a tough game overall. Look, they won't be any walkover by any means. And yeah, look, you'll have as well probably Shani Maguire lining out for Cork City unless an injury rules him out between now and then, or a suspension or anything like that. And of course, Shani Maguire was strongly linked to head to Rovers in the winter. Rovers pursued him, and to no avail, because I think Cork City were quite stubborn in saying that he's not for sale. Which is, it's interesting on the Cork front, because they maybe thinking what type of fee would they have gotten um, for Maguire's services off Rovers, and maybe Rovers slightly more open to paying, but whatever Cork City were demanding. Because look, now you have Michael Noonan's going at the door. Maybe they'll revisit that Shiny Maguire interest either. Only time will tell. There's a lot of there's a lot of rumours swirling around as it approaches transfer season again. Transfer window is opening, due or scheduled to open soon enough. So yeah, there'll be plenty of movement there, and keep an eye on those tabs as well, because yeah, as I said, Michael Noonan, Alex Noonan heading out the door potentially. That will likely increase Rovers' interest in trying to get a striker back in the door as well. But I'll move it on, and that's to the game coming up, and that's next Friday. Rovers head to Talca Park. It's been selected for TV as well, so it will be on Virgin Media. So it's been moved to an 8 p.m. kickoff, just for fans to note that as well. It was initially 7:45 until it was announced the other day that it's confirmed for a TV listing. But yeah, Rovers head to Talca Park for the second time this season. The last visit was a 2-2 draw, and saw Shelbourne go 2-0 up quite quickly as well, if you jog your memory back. That was when Rovers, it was near the start of the season. I think it was actually the Rovers ended up being the first game Rovers played this season. Or yeah, it was. And yeah, look, they went two behind inside 13 minutes. Before 33 minutes, it was back to 2-2, and you would thought from that point onward that Rovers were going to get the winner, and inevitably they didn't. Shelbourne, however, have been struggling for form, and Rovers should be confident now with the break coming as well. Shelbourne winless, obviously, look, only 2 games, 2-game winless run. However, they've been, I don't know, I think their form has been quite mixed as well. If you look at it as well, it's only 2 wins in their last 6 games as well, so they're not where they want to be. Currently sitting fifth in the table. The points, it's 14 points already off Rovers now. They do have a game in hand as well. That could be, could be 11. But then it's funny enough, you look at that gap now and you think that's 14 points. It's massive, but they have a game in hand, which would bring that to 11 if they were to win it. And if they did beat Rovers next Friday, hopefully not, that'd be 8. Now of course, look, I'm not saying Shelbourne are going to be coming back into the title race, but it's not too late either. We're only past the halfway mark of the season now, So yeah, look, I think Shelbourne are a side that are struggling for form. They just want to push the European places essentially as well. 6 points off Pats, who are third for that final European place. Of course, fourth can become a European place as well, depending on who the cup winners are. But you have to kind of treat it on the side of caution and say that's you're chasing third essentially, not relying on the cup winners to come from the top three. Of course, it did work out like that last season with Rovers winning the double. But yeah, look, on the Rovers front, I think Rovers should be confident going into the game. I don't see why Rovers would be too concerned coming up to face Joey O'Brien's side, the former hoop. But I suppose the other side of that coin is it is a Dublin derby, third one in a row as well, and it can be Dublin derby wins in a row if Rovers were to get 3 points, which is also a huge, yeah, a huge moment that that Stephen Bradley can unlock essentially with 3 points next week. It is a tough place to go, however. As you know, look, the conditions there, it can be a slightly uneven surface as well. You can see a bobble on the pitch. When players are trying to kind of have a flat, if maybe a pass between or amongst the centre backs, trying to keep it even on the surface is a bit more of a struggle. And teams coming to adapt to that. Rovers are only playing there twice a year, like every other opposing side of Shelbourne. But yeah, look, it can be difficult to adapt to the conditions. And look, of course, you also have the fact that Shelbourne fans can be quite close to that pitch as well. So, throw-ins when they're taken or when the players going down the flanks, it's a little bit more cozy on the wings and can make for a bit more of or it's an attempt to make it a bit more intimidating place to go for opposing sides like your Shamrock Rovers and your Bows, your Pats, anyone who's a Dublin rival particularly will come up against that. And yeah, you can expect that to be the case when Rovers go there next week. Of course, look, Rovers will continue to be without Pico Lopez. He's about to embark on his World Cup campaign that begins for Cape Verde Monday week as well. Just to mention that as well. Did play in two friendlies for Cape Verde. They played Bermuda most recently and Serbia the week before, winning 3-1 and 3-0. So quite convincing, and Pico played in both of those games. So yeah, look, Rovers are without Pico again. But yeah, and then of course the usual suspects is Rory Gaffney and Danny Mandroyo, both being out. And Asamoah seems to be out for the fixture as well. But yeah, look, I think Rovers have enough depth that they shouldn't be too concerned on the injury fronts and anyways, and they haven't been. Look, in recent times, seeing Corey O'Sullivan come back into the fold as well recently. So yeah, look, Rovers are looking strong. And yeah, I think I don't know, I'd probably speak on behalf of most or all League of Rovers fans and League of Ireland fans for that matter as well, and saying that yeah, I think everyone just wants to see Rovers back on the pitch. Having the 2 week break, look, it's good for the players to get it. Look, maybe it might not have been as much of a break for the trio of Brennan, McGinty, and Healy going away on the Ireland camp. A bit involved in probably a bit more intense training. Due to preparing for a game, whereas maybe on the Rovers front, I'm sure Bradley probably presumably gave them a few days off to kind of recuperate, but then go full steam ahead again and preparing for Shelbourne. It's another huge game, and it's another Dublin derby. And look, Stephen Bradley will have no qualms in saying that he'll want to keep this good record going against the Dublin sides first of all, but as well as that, continuing to sit top of the table. Of course, they will anyways, regardless of the result, because they have now a 6 point gap on Bows. They have an 8 point gap on Pats, but Pats have a game in hand over both Bows and Rovers, who are above them. Elsewhere in the league, look, Bows go to Derry, which is going to be a tough place to go for them, and Pats host Drogheda, so you'd suspect. I think at the moment with the way Drogheda are going, I think you'd suspect that Pats will beat Drogheda. Bows beating Derry, I think will be a bit less. I'd be a bit less confident about. I think that could end up being. I would presume if I was to stick my money anywhere on that, it's a draw. Now I'm also not just saying that because Derry have the most draws in the league, and they've played 20 games and they've drawn 10 of them. So we've drawn half. They've only won 4 games of the league, which is actually quite mad. If you bear in mind that Sligo, who sit in ninth, have one more win than them. But it's of course because if you swap over there, Derry have 10 draws and only six have 6 defeats. Sligo have 4 draws and 10 defeats, so nearly a reverse around. And Sligo have played one less game than them. But then again, there's only 3 points to separate Sligo and Derry as well. But of course, Derry so much further up the table. Um, yeah, look, Shelbourne have been struggling for form. I know I've already touched on that, but they have. As I said, two wins in their last 6 games isn't making good for good viewing. They won't be overly confident either. Coming up against, look, I think a Rover side who are coming into form and clicking into gear. But yeah, look, I've reported on this before when we were doing articles on the site as well. It tends to be a draw between these two. This is really the reoccurring theme. But yeah, look, I think I don't know. Wouldn't be particularly happy with a draw at the moment. I think the way Rovers are going, you want to continue that. You want to make 6 Dublin Derby wins in a row, and of course you always want to beat a Dublin rival as well, regardless of the conditions. It's nearly always like a mini final in itself. Shelbourne haven't beaten Rovers in Tolka since February 24, so look, that's over 2 years ago. Um, and yeah, look, I think Rovers are going to come in here definitely way more confident than their opponents. So yeah, look, if Rovers can go and take 3 points, and as I said, I do think Bows are going to drop points against Derry City, so it's an opportunity to increase the gap on Bows. Of course, look, if that was to be the case, and Pats do beat Drogheda, as I think will happen as well, it does mean that they'll swap places and Pats will go into second. But it'll be interesting to see who's going to be the main title pusher, I suppose. Who's going to push Rovers. Um, and we can see the early signs of patterns who is going to be. But it's obviously swapping hands between Bows and Pats at the moment. And sure, it wasn't too long ago that there was only minimal points separating Rovers and Pats. So it's not to say Rovers are running away with this either. But look, it's looking good on the Rovers front. It seems like they're clicking into gear. Players are clicking into gear as well that weren't maybe previously. John McGovern, particularly, I thought. He's looking really positive heading into the break. Might come at the wrong time for him as well. And look, Graham Burke obviously continued his good form as well. He, scoring that goal that obviously won Rovers the derby against Pats last week. That was an unbelievable goal. But that's just more of the same from Graham Burke, really, isn't it? Exceeding 100 goals for the club, and yeah, look, he just kind of, I don't know, he's nearly like a fine wine. He's not aging at the moment. He's performing at such a good level, such a high standard. Um, and then look, you had, of course, look, that 2-1 win over Bows. I think still feeling the joys of it. Yeah, but what a way to win it. But if you think about it, look, Rovers, yeah, look, the 2 good Dublin Derby wins heading into the break, but 2 defeats just in the lead up to them as well. Losing to Dundalk and losing to Sligo Rovers. So, and that Sligo Rovers defeat was identical to how they won the game against Bows, really. But yeah, Rovers don't return to Tallaght Stadium either till Monday the 22nd of June. That's against Derry City. They have now back-to-back away days in Shelbourne and Waterford. So the Waterford game, the last time Rovers went to the RSC, was a tough fixture. But yeah, at the moment, I think the break should do the players well. Look, sometimes it can go the other way as well and disrupt the rhythm. But I don't know. I think at the moment Rovers are in good form, and I think hopefully the break's done them well, and giving them that time to kind of rest and recuperate. Because if you jog your memory back as well, Rovers nearly are like they were fixed football wise and playing games. Obviously the Conference League phase went on until the week before Christmas, and then they were back for the Presidents Cup the week before the league started. So I think it's only about 6 or 7 weeks between the 2025 season concluding and the 2026 season starting back up. So yeah, look, no rest for the wicked. But as I always say, it's the punishment of success is having these games and these turnarounds as well. But yeah, look, overall, I think Rovers will be confident going into the Shelbourne game. Another Dublin derby, so it's another huge game. These fixtures, as I said, they're nearly like mini cup finals in themselves. And I say mini, but it's definitely not mini. Not mini about when Rovers scored that last minute winner against Bows in Dalymount, and I don't think there's that many about Rovers getting that goal against Pats as well when Graham Burke smashing it into the top corner. So yeah, look, if Rovers were to win at Talca Park, I wouldn't be calling that many either. These are Dublin derbies, and yeah, no, they're just cup finals throughout the season. I think really, It's huge when you win them. Look, when you maybe are on the wrong side of the game, maybe then that's when you say these aren't the be all and the end all of the season. Which I know obviously inevitably they're not either, because the main thing that's or the most important fact of the matter is where sides are at the end of the season. But that's it from myself for episode 35 of the Milltown Way. There's plenty happening this week, as I said, international duty, transfer rumours, and the cup draw. But now the attention fully turns to Shelbourne away, as Rovers will come back from the break. Other than that, I'll chat to you after Shelbourne. Thanks for listening.